Tell you what happens when you have good leadership. What happened Thursday was that 11 more cities around the United States announced that they would divest their holdings in fossil fuel companies. That would not have happened, at least this fast, if we hadn't been able to say Seattle, one of the great cities in the whole country, it's already done this. It's not that scary. It's not that hard. You can do it. I sense I'm doing something wrong already.
You. May I see your mic?
Yes, you may.
Would you like to share another word?
No, that's all right. I need to repeat all my phrases in the air. I don't want to make them blush. Look, y'all, it really is good to be here. I'm afraid you are not getting me at my absolute best. So it's sort of good. I know a fair number of people in this room. There's a number of people, and so I sort of feel a little bit like I'm with family. And so it's okay, maybe a little bit if I preached this morning at Riverside Church in New York, which is among other things, the tallest church in America. And quite a beautiful place, but it has nothing on this. This is a gorgeous sanctuary here too, and I love this. Butterflies hanging down in the middle, and it's just nice to be here. And to be able to say thank you to the mayor, and be able to help a little bit with the fights that you all are engaged in. I thought maybe what might be useful would just be to bring you up to date a little bit on where we are in science, where we are in politics, and kind of what's going to come next. Do I have a clicker to control those slides or not?
I'm a clicker.
Okay. Then just go on to the next one, the blank one, and leave it there for a minute. Well, let's get the bad news out of the way first. We're completely screwed in all kinds of ways. Having written the first book about all this stuff 25 years ago, it's not that I was not unprepared for global warming to kick in, but everyone, all the scientists were unprepared for how quickly and on what scale it would kick in. We've raised the temperature 1 degree Celsius thus far. It's not that much. It's about 3/4 of a watt of extra solar energy per square meter of the Earth's surface that we're trapping. Less than a small white Christmas tree light per square meter, but there are, in fact, a lot of square meters on the surface of the Earth. And so when we add it all up, it's the energetic equivalent. Jim Hansen calculated recently of about 400,000 Hiroshima-sized bombs going off daily with extra energy that we're trapping. And so that energy's starting to do big things. The biggest thing it's done so far, maybe, is pretty much melt the Arctic. The new Cryosat data that came out last 2 weeks ago now shows that there's only about 20% of the summer sea ice left in the Arctic that was there 40 years ago. That's not a good sign. I mean, there are only so many large physical features on the planet, things that you can kind of see from outer space, and when you begin breaking them, that's not good. And of course, the other ones aren't that far behind. The ocean is all the oceans are about 30% more acidic than they were 40 years ago. And y'all are already seeing the effects here and the ability of things like oyster farmers to keep their crops growing. But if you think about that, you quickly realize that we only know about that because someone's actually kind of counting and selling and whatever. I mean, if it's happening there, it's happening all up and down the marine food chain. And of course, on land, what we see most is the change in hydrology. Warm air air holds more water vapor than coal. The atmosphere is 5% water. So that's a big change. And it means that the dice are loaded for drought and flood. And so we see place after place all over the world. Every day now, some places going on. Houston, Texas got 7 inches of rain in 2 hours yesterday. And then it followed, some parts of it had a hailstorm so intense that there's a picture of video of now. There's a river of hail sort of washing away down. The week before that, it was Buenos Aires. A rainstorm so severe, the governor called it a tsunami of rain, more than they'd ever measured before. 50-some people apparently died in their cars, as the water rose. By now, sort of biblical scale bizarreness almost on a daily basis. And since we're in church, worth noting that the people who get hurt the worst and the first are the people that we're called upon most to try and protect. The least among us, the poorest people on the planet, are the earliest victims. Not that by now this is sort of affecting everyone, but, think about, say, Superstorm Sandy roaring up the East Coast last fall. And it was a big storm, and we paid attention to it. The lowest barometric pressure ever recorded north of Cape Hatteras. The largest wind field we've ever measured, the wind tropical storm force winds, 1,040 miles out from the eye, and all of that. And of course, it did horrible damage in New York and New Jersey, and it should have given anybody pause. The idea that our technologically advanced civilization is invulnerable to this sort of thing should have been kind of laid to rest by the sight of seawater pouring into the New York City subway system. But the place that got hit the worst from Hurricane Sandy was Haiti. More people died there than died in New York. They're still in the Colorado break underway. They lost something like 40% of their crops as that storm blew through. And the same all over the world. It was the year before that. The floods in Pakistan were so intense that 20 million people were out of their homes. The Indus River was covering a quarter of the country. Our drought last summer in the Midwest, when it was too hot to grow corn on the richest farmland in the world, that drought was a problem for farmers there, but of course they all had crop insurance and the federal government and things to back them up. It was a real problem for poor people and the rest of the world. If you have to get up in the morning and find enough coins to go to the market and buy cornmeal to make tortillas with for your family that night, a 30% increase in the price of corn was the biggest thing that happened in your world last year. And of course, the scary part is we're barely at the beginning of this. We raised temperature 1 degree, but the same scientists told us that would happen. They're quite robust in their prediction that it'll go up 4 or 5 degrees before the century is out unless we get off coal and gas and oil far more quickly than any government currently plans. And we can't